Hi everyone, Angela here with Holland Chambers Real Estate, and today we have our All About Real Estate segment that we are covering with our Glendale City Clerk, Ardy Kassakhian. Hi Ardy, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Sure, real estate is about quality of life, and the neighborhoods that we sell are really about, the services and who we are as a police department, as a fire department, as our schools, and everything goes into part of being real estate, and it makes our job a lot easier when we have something excellent to sell out there.
Yeah,
So
we have a term for it in government, and I think in neighborhoods we call it the quality of life.
quality of
And
life.
I think that's what realtors do as well. You're selling a certain package, a certain lifestyle, which includes that quality of life. When my wife and I were fortunate enough to purchase our home in Glendale, our first house 4 years ago. And, we wanted a neighborhood with good schools, a neighborhood
Yes.
with police services, with a good fire department. And I think that is very important. You're right. It goes hand in hand.
And all of that obviously doesn't happen out of nowhere. It's important that we have the right people in place, the right elements in place to help make our city a well-functioning, thriving city. So I know that the elections are coming up, and it's about 33 days away. So when is it? When is it? It's in
The election is going to be on April 4th, and it's a Tuesday, as it always is. Glendale has an election every other April in an odd number year. So this is 2017, an odd number, and April 4th, 2017. Glendale residents, registered voters, people who are registered to vote in Glendale, will be able to wake up in the morning, go to the polls when they open at 7 a.m., and they'll have until 8 p.m. And at the end of it, we will have selected a new council. And by new council, we have actually two incumbents who are running for re-election, and there's one open seat. There's 10 candidates running, and it should prove to be exciting. Of course, there's other elections as well, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Sure. So how important is it for people to vote?
I think it's very, very important to vote, but there are people out there who obviously will be very cynical, disillusioned, and they'll say, well, will my vote really count? Especially when we look at the presidential election. There was disappointment on one side and then disappointment on the other side for a variety of reasons. I think in general, people look at what happens on the national level and then they take that and they transfer it to the local level. But they have to understand that presidential elections and congressional elections are very different from local elections. Local elections are the elections that most impact your life immediately. Whether you have a stop sign on the corner, whether there's speed bumps on your street, we're talking about traffic congestion, development issues, the cost of, whether, a parking ticket or your utility bill, your electricity, your water bill, all of this is done at the local level. These are decisions made. There are decisions made at the state, county, and federal level that may slowly or over time impact those, or maybe immediately, but the most immediate impact you feel from your local elected officials. And that means school board. In Glendale, we have our own college board of trustees, and we have city council. And in this election, I should add, we also have a unique measure called Measure L that we're proposing. I think it's the first time in many decades that there's a proposal to have term limits on our council members to encourage a greater turnaround and have more people running for public office.
So that's Measure L?
Measure L.
On term limits?
Yes. If a voter decides to vote yes on Measure L, that means they want term limits. That means limiting our council members to 3 4-year terms. So that would be a total of 12 years, after which they would not be able to run for re-election. If they decide to vote no on Measure L, that means they want council members or candidates to be able to run indefinitely. If they're on council, there's no limit to how long they can serve.
Thank you for that, because sometimes I know that measures are written in a way that becomes confusing. You think you're voting yes, but you're actually voting no, so that helps a lot. Thank you very much for that. So voters, will they be receiving sample ballots in the mail?
Yes, and actually, it's interesting that you should mention that. You said sample ballots, and we all know the sample ballot as being that booklet that we get that's very thick, has a lot of information in it. the California State Legislature changed the name of the voter sample ballot to voter information guide. And I think that's more appropriate because some people think that when they get that sample ballot and there's a copy of the ballot in there, if they fill that out and then send it back, somehow they've voted. That's just simply a guide to tell people what is coming up, what names and what offices are going to be on the ballot, or initiatives in this case. And that's just purely for their informational use only. The actual ballot, they can either order and get one if they want to be a vote-by-mail voter.
So they have to request
They
one?
have to request one.
Okay.
But in Glendale, about half the voters, about 40% of our voters, are what is called a permanent vote-by-mail voter. That means they have indicated to the county registrar at LA County that they want to vote in every single election from home.
Okay.
So about 40,000 ballots are going to come to voters. We have about 97,000 registered voters in Glendale, of which 40,000 are people who always receive their ballot at home. I'm not one of those people. I know people who are. I always like to go to the polling location, go to either the local school auditorium or to the library hall, whatever it may be, and vote there. But in addition to that, people can also, if you're going to be traveling, you're not going to be around on Election Day. Tuesday is a working day for many, many people, many Americans. You can always go to City Hall starting on March 10th.
Okay.
Go to the Election Center, which is located in the Police Department Community Room, and you can actually vote there in person by presenting yourself and saying, I will not be able to vote on Election Day. I'd like to have the ability to vote here now.
That's very good information because you know what? Votes are very important and every vote counts. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
making it easier for people to make their voices heard, I think that's a great way to approach it and make it possible for people to do so.
Angela, I will add to that and say that in Glendale, we have about 25,000 people who consistently vote in these elections. But we've had elections that have been decided by 65 votes, elections that have been decided by less than 300 votes, and that's out of 25,000 cast. And 300 may seem like a large number, but you and I have probably been to a couple of weddings with more than 300 guests there. And I know a lot of people who are watching this probably have more than 300 contacts in their phone, especially if they're in the real estate business.
Right.
But, you know, it is important to know that, you know, you could be that deciding vote. 65 votes is not much, and we had an incumbent who lost re-election by, I believe it was 65 or 62 votes, not too long ago, just a couple of election cycles ago. So, you know, why let someone else make a decision for you? Why let someone else decide who's going to be making the decisions that are going to impact your life, your family's life, your children, your spouse, your pets, your commute to work? I mean, these are all things that the city council in one way or another has an impact on, as well as the school board in terms of how good the schools are. You know, that's one of the things that we forget about. In regard to that, I'd like to mention and use this opportunity to inform our viewers that we're going to have by-district elections for both the school board and for the college board. So in Glendale, we have 5 council members, and they're elected citywide. So it doesn't matter if I live up in Montrose or if I live in Tropico in the southern tip of Glendale by San Fernando and Brand. We all get to vote for the same 3 council members. Not the same 3, but we get up to 3 votes.
Okay.
So it's 3 votes this cycle. Next cycle, you'll get 2 votes to vote for 2 individuals 2 years from now. If, however, you know, you're voting for school district, we used to have 5 that were elected the same way. But the school district and the college district, both, each who have 5 members, decide to split the city up into districts.
Okay.
And now you can only vote for the individuals who are running in your geographical area. So we have 3 districts that are going to be voting, and you can go on Glendale ca.gov and go to the city clerk's office, or even easier, go to glendalevotes.org. That's Glendale Votes, all one word, .org, glendalevotes.org, and you'll see a map, and you'll get to also fill out the feature. It says, what are my districts? And you'll be able to see if you get to vote for a school board member in your area. And it may be that you get to vote for a school board candidate in your district where you live, but your neighbor across the street, because the boundary line splits the district, may not get to vote.
Interesting. Will that be already indicated on the ballots in advance? Or okay.
So if you are going to get a ballot, or even when you get your voter information guide and it tells you where your polling location is, when you go to your polling location or when you receive your ballot, it'll tell you on there, it'll only have the names of those offices for which you're eligible to vote.
Okay. So it kind of makes it easier for people not to get confused.
We try not to confuse people. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes people are still confused. I'm sure there are some who are watching right now and are confused from what I already said. But it's okay. We try to make it as simple as possible. If you go to glendalevotes.org, we also have an informational video with some graphics. We've tried to make it like a cartoon, make it as simple as possible. And if you're still confused then, well, you can always call 818-548-4000. That's 818-548-4000. And we will be able to tell you where to vote, how to vote. We won't tell you who to vote for, that's your decision, but we'll try to make it as simple as possible. We want to make voting simple for people. This is the way I look at it. People can vote for American Idol, they can figure that out, or Dancing with the Stars. This should not be a problem.
This should not be a problem, absolutely. Just to get to the point of some of the measures that are on the ballot, what are some specific things that you already mentioned, Measure L, and what are some other things that we need to pay attention to? Will there be something like the Measure S on this ballot, or
on Glendale's ballot, there will not be.
Okay.
So whatever is on the ballot is already on the ballot. And actually, if you go to glendalevotes.org, you can look at the sample ballot. You can look at the voter information guide. We have it in a downloadable PDF form, and you can look at it. But you're right. City of Los Angeles and County of Los Angeles had a couple of measures, Measure H and Measure S. One impacting funds to help homeless individuals and provide homeless services. Measure S is regarding development in Los Angeles. And in Glendale right now, there isn't any issue like that. But I can tell you that the cost of housing, the cost of buying a new home, the cost of rent is a big issue in Glendale.
Right.
And it may be that in the future there may be a similar initiative brought forth to the voters, but not in this election. And as soon as something does come up, we'll be back here on this program to let voters and your viewers know about it.
Very good. Quickly, to go back to the voter, what do they need to have with them when they come to vote?
Working brain. I'm just kidding. In fact, you don't even need that to vote. Some would argue. But what you do, if your question is, I think, asking whether you want you need an identification card. You don't need that. Under California law and I believe federal law, there are some states that institute a voter identification rule. California does not.
Okay.
All you need to do is show up. Make sure that you're going to the place where you're supposed to be voting. So on your voter information guide or through the city's website, find where your polling location is. Most often it's a public building, a building that's accessible to people who are disabled, so it has wheelchair access. So go to that place. There will be a check-in desk. You'll tell them what your name is. They'll ask you your address. You'll confirm it. Or they'll ask you your address and you'll tell them your name. And then you sign a form, you sign a booklet, you're handed a ballot, you go vote, and you're done.
Very good. So, closing remarks?
I really want to thank you, and I want to thank this program for taking a moment out from talking about, I know that the very important work that you do, talking about business or aspirational issues such as owning your first home or an investment property, and making that connection to city government, and letting your viewers know that it's great to do business, it's great to achieve your dreams of being a homeowner, but we're also living in a wonderful country that gives us the right to express our opinions. Not a lot of people do. Many people have come here as immigrants from countries that did not provide them their rights. So it's really our civic duty. It doesn't take more than 5 minutes. You won't get called for jury duty, people. I hope you're listening to me. That is a myth. People think that if I vote, I'm going to be called for jury duty. I spoke to someone the other day. I wasn't happy with them because they said they'd never voted before in their life, but they'd been called to jury duty 4 times.
Okay, maybe they need to vote.
Yeah. So, make sure that you go out there and you make your voice heard. Glendale votes, and so should you. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear your opinion on April 4th. Go to www.glendalevotes.org or call 818-548-4000 and get all the information that you need to make an informed decision and shape the future of your community. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, if you don't live in Glendale, you can still vote in the city that you live in. Find out through your city website and get the information that you need to make your voice heard. It's very important, and everything locally depends on your voice and your involvement. So thank you very much, and have a great voting season.